in social services to find therapists who will work with the birth parents and their children that have been placed in foster care. So what that means is the foster parents will bring the children in, and then the birth parents will meet at the clinic, and we'll do some therapy with the birth parents and the children together. And then again, depending on how the referral goes, what the courts are looking to see, sometimes we'll do some individual work with the parents as well. You know, and you spoke about trauma, and I think we see a very different kind of trauma in the families that are involved in social services and in the child welfare system in particular when there's been abuse and neglect. Oftentimes, you know, the children will have had you know, trauma from whatever maltreatment experiences that they've gone through, but then the parents as well often have a lot of things that they're struggling with, or have had a lot of really oppressive experiences in their lifetime, whether it's been, you know, some type of sexual abuse or just basically, I think, a lot of marginalization in society where they don't have the resources, they're very isolated, and just are not able to get the help that they need. I think I see a lot of single parents that just feel very alone and are struggling with a lot.
I've said this, and believe me, I'm not a therapist. I've had education, but not in as much in the areas that you have. But I've said many times, people who have been hurt many times are likely to hurt people because they've had that kind of hurt in their lives, and many times we see that people, and not all, certainly not, but people who have been abused, although they hate it, there may be that tendency to deal with life as they've been dealt with, or as they've seen their parents deal with life. Do you find that to be true, and then how do you work to try to change that situation, or is that just something that...
I think that's a really difficult question, because one of the things that I don't know if the Michigan Kids Count data came out not that long ago, and it talks a lot about one of the most prevalent types of abuse and neglect is physical neglect, and a lot of that is tied to just not having the resources to provide for your children appropriately, or to even have a home for them. And so I think, you know, I hate to generalize to all parents, you know, who are struggling, for sure, but it seems like lately what I've seen a lot of in the referrals are parents who have had just so much stress and so much difficulty, whether it's, you know, that they were foster children themselves, or have problems with substances or addiction, or, you know, just... I can't even begin to imagine facing some of the stressors that some of the parents I see face. And I think it becomes really hard to manage yourself and then try to figure out what to do with your kids when you don't have anybody to help you, nor do you have the education, nor do you have the economic resources. You know, I've seen a number of women lately who don't have 8th grade educations and have children and can't find a job. Of course they can't find a job. Somebody with, you know, a high school diploma is having a heck of a time finding a job, and they're worried that they're not going to get their kids back. And I think with the right amount of, I think, help with parenting and helping them to, you know, care for and emotionally be present for their children, I think that's something we can definitely do as therapists. But one of the things I think I've been struggling with is what to do with the economic piece, where they can be present emotionally for their children, but if they don't have a house, or if they can't provide, you know, food or clothing or shelter for them, then what, you know, then what do you do? So I think that's been so difficult.
Sure, and that's a huge piece. And my comment wasn't specifically related to the economic piece or the neglect from that standpoint. I was thinking more of
the physical abuse
the
piece?
Abuse, yes, the abuse piece. That's what I was speaking to.
Oh. I went on a little bit of a tangent.
No, that's fine. No, absolutely. No, because they're both very difficult issues to deal with.
Yeah.
Would you, now you're a therapist, and obviously you deal with pretty intense situations, but some of the problems that you're talking about, many people are dealing with, and they're not all coming to professional therapists, and maybe you're thinking, well, they should be, but
yeah.
But I've been a big proponent of of people helping people. Now, obviously, sometimes you get into a situation that's perhaps beyond your level of expertise, and so you need to refer to someone else. But sometimes someone offering a helping hand or being there, you talked about being alone, and I think that is a horrible, horrible feeling, whether you're coming back from serving in the armed forces and you can't figure out why, instead of being welcomed, you're ostracized.
Right, right.
Or whether you're in a very tough economic situation and maybe you don't have the resources to, or perhaps don't know as much about how to care for your children. That sense of being alone is pretty difficult.
I see a lot of people that feel very isolated, or maybe, I think with parenting in particular, we all sort of think like parenting should just come naturally. You know, you get the baby and you should bring it home from the hospital and it just magically you know what to do.
Right.
And I think without those sort of mentors in our lives, whether it's a grandma or a neighbor or a good friend, that it's really hard to know what to do, or to be able to say, hey, what do you think about this, or to even be able to just say, this, I haven't slept for 3 hours, but last night. I think those people are so important, and we do see a lot of people that feel very isolated and don't have the types of social support sometimes that you're talking about.
In terms of like post-traumatic stress disorder, the number one protector in the research literature for PTSD is social support. Do you have a support system around you? Actually, this is one of the issues we've worried about with the National Guard, is that the National Guard really, they don't go back to one base, they spread out all over the state, so their buddies that they're deployed with then may not be there. And so part of our work has been trying to make sure families are connecting and reintegrating well, but I think everyone deals with stress differently. So some people grow up in poverty and then kind of can rise up through that. Other people, just can't escape that for whatever reasons. Or some people witness very traumatic events during war and come back and seem to adjust pretty well. Others seem to not adjust so well. So I think there's something about kind of an individual and how they deal with stress, whether it's their family context, or whether it's something maybe genetic or temperament-wise, or something in their upbringing that helps them to deal with those events. But I think that is one of the things that we do see, is that people do deal with situations differently.
It's something you said right at the beginning of our discussion. It's the context that it's in, and I think that's absolutely right. I've been a very big proponent of efforts where we gather around people, whether that be tutoring, mentoring, befriending someone, just to help deal with that sense of being alone. I've been a big proponent of premarital preparation because it's such an important, I believe, an important act, and people think that they know each other, but maybe they don't. And sometimes there's this concept of, well, I'm falling in love, and I've had people who came to me when I was married and wanted me to marry them. And so when did you meet? Well, last week. Sorry, I'm just not going to do that, because I want them to have a better basis for that relationship. So I think that you're absolutely right. The context, you said, parenting. Do people know how to parent? We assume that they do, but perhaps they don't. We just had a grandchild. My wife was there with my daughter, helping her learn and walk through those experiences with my daughter and son-in-law. And so you're absolutely right. I think people helping out, reaching and helping out other people is important, but also sometimes we need that very professional help. And I appreciate your being here with me on this program today. Thank you very much. It was very important. And I want to say thank you for watching, and we hope that you'll watch us next time on From Capital to Community, as we discuss more very important issues important to West Michigan and our whole state. Thank you for joining us.